Hello and welcome back to Behave, the podcast with your host, Dr. Tamsin, Chief Habit Scientist, international speaker and author. Today, I have a fabulous guest, and I think you're going to be really excited when you hear all the juicy things that she will drop on you today. That's Deborah Fryer. So Deborah and I met, I think it was 2016 when we were in a mastermind together with Emily. And then Deborah then became my coach because she is a money mindset maven. And she's also very grounded in neuroscience, which of course totally appealed to me with my neuroscience background. So Deborah helps creative, spiritual, heart-centered entrepreneurs tap into their inner authority, creativity, confidence, and wisdom. Her Anatomy of Money brain training system incorporates ancient wisdom, modern science, and proven mind-body tools and energy practices to help you train your mind, body, soul for prosperity and flow. When you're aligned with the truth of who you are, it's so much easier to realize your dreams, trust your intuition, and experience true health, wealth, happiness, and freedom. Welcome, Deborah. Oh my God, that's so juicy.
Who doesn't want all that, right?
Yay. Oh my goodness. I love it. So what I would love to ask you first is, when you think of the word behave, what do you take from that? What do you think about behave and behavior?
Well, I love, when I hear you say, I'm doing a podcast called Behave, because right when you say it, your intonation is all about rebelliousness. It's like somebody saying behave, and you're like, fuck that, I am not going to behave, right? Like,
Yeah.
no, no, don't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And the way my brain works, which is very oriented towards pattern recognition and shifting things around like in a Scrabble game, I see be and have. And, so much of who we are is who we are being. And we think, until we realize otherwise, we think that what we have defines us. And truly, it's who we be that defines us. So I
Mm.
love that you've got in your title being and having. And in fact, I've got all these truth bumps lining up right now because, like, you're such a genius. And so am I. Like this co-creation that just happened about behave, and it's I'm being and having, and who am I
Yeah.
being and what am I having?
Yeah.
Like, what am I having when I'm being who I really want to be? Like, the having goes way, way, way up. And it's probably a misbehaving of what I was conditioned to be, do, or have.
So that's really interesting. I think that sense of conditioning, because I think that
Yeah.
that's something I'd love to dive into that a little bit more, because the subconscious mind is something that is so powerful. And one of my business mentors used to say, the subconscious always has veto power. So it doesn't
Mm.
matter how much you do that work, the subconscious is always going to come in there and be like, you think you've changed the way you feel about this, or you think you've changed the way you're going to react in the situation, but the subconscious is going to come in there and whip your butt. So talk to me about how you support your clients around understanding the subconscious mind, reprogramming the subconscious mind.
Such a juicy topic. So the subconscious mind does intervene. But there are actually two things that are going on. Because when the subconscious mind intervenes, the subconscious mind is saying, oh, no, no, you better not do that. But who's the subconscious mind talking to, right? There's the part that's like, oh, no, you better not do that. That's talking to the one that's rising, the one that's misbehaving, the one that's drawing with crayon on the wall. That was me. I got in a lot of trouble for being arty. I'd play the piano like this, right? Like, because I'm super energetic. And I broke a piano bench because I'm in movement. I'm kinesthetic and I'm artistic and I'm creative and I don't like to sit still. And so the subconscious mind is putting the kibosh on the one hand out of love. It's putting the kibosh because it's saying, Deborah, if you behaved a little bit, you'd be more loved.
Mm.
So it's coming from love. And at the same time, the subconscious mind is 95% of everything we do, think, be, have. Really, it's so magical. It's the prosperity playground of all prosperity playgrounds. And, I get my clients out of the monkey mind into the monkey bars of the subconscious mind.
Oh, I love that.
Because, like, we're so powerful when we plug into the all that is, when we plug into the bigger version of ourselves. So the subconscious mind is informing us that we've contorted ourselves.
Mm.
And if you've contorted yourself, it's because you've squished yourself into a box, which means there's a bigger you hiding underneath the contortion. So
Yeah.
I help my clients unhook from the itty bitty shitty committee that says you did that wrong, you fucked up, you did it wrong, you should have, blah blah blah, and reclaim the truly creative, truly powerful being you've always been. You've never not been her.
Itty bitty shitty committee. I love that. That's just fucking awesome. I'm totally feeling that, the itty bitty shitty committee. So, I mean, it sounds like a lot of it is about helping people, you know, really unplug from those limiting beliefs, those sort of those things that we say to ourselves and that we like don't even necessarily want to articulate out loud, because they're these like deepest, darkest, sort of most negative things that we think about ourselves when we like get into that kind of self-hatred, failure, which you've coached me through. Like when I've been stuck in those places and I'm just like, oh, I hate everything and I do everything wrong and I'm the worst human. And you're like, whoa.
Right? Like that's one pixel in the Jumbotron of all life.
Yeah.
And really what I help my clients recognize and remember is that when those parts show up, and we all have them, it's not like you do the work and you don't have the parts anymore. You actually are going to have the parts in bigger parts. Like when you go from 6 to 7 figures, now what? Now who do you think you are? You thought you were something when you broke 6 figures, and then when you had a 6-figure day, and now you're having a 7-figure year. Like you're going to have to constantly revisit, who do you think you are? You're too big for your britches. Nobody's going to like you. We all have those. And so it's really a recognition of, I'm afraid I'm not going to be loved, right? Anytime those beliefs come in that say I'm the most terrible, horrible, awful person, it's because we've somehow tripped over some unwritten rule or some unwritten loyalty. And we think that the people who love us the most aren't going to love us if we cross that line. So it's really love showing up. It's just a misinterpretation.
So do you think that love and fear are like the opposite? Because there's quite a lot of people who write that like if you step out of fear and into love, like that those are the two like polar opposites, right? And that
I
it's
think they're
about,
the same.
say that again?
I think they're the same.
You think they're the same? Oh, tell me more about this.
And here's why. Here's why. I got to clear. So let's talk Einstein for a moment. Let's talk wave particle duality for a moment. So we're all wave, right? We're all light. We're all some vibrational form that shows up in varying degrees of densities. And you call that different vibrational density sound. It's the Beatles, or it's AC/DC, or it's Beethoven, or we call it color. It's red, or it's blue, or it's green. Emotion also is vibrational density. Your body is vibrational density, right? My skin is different vibrational density from my bones, which is a different vibrational density from the water parts of me. So since we're all of it, as a wave, we could be anything. And from the quantum perspective, we are all things at all times. We identify as this limited version of me. Like, I think this is me. I think I'm a separate self. But, you know, you and I are breathing the same air. We're circulating the same all that isness through us at the same time. So I'm both wave, as in breath, and I'm also the particle. I'm the individual self, and I'm also connected to the universal self. And so how do love and fear play into this? So I believe that the highest frequency there is love. And it is the frequency of all consciousness, all that is. It is the formless. And through us, because of us, we give it form. So when we're in a place of fear, we have, through our thought processes, thought is just up here. It's just infinite. It's formless and colorless and shapeless, right? You can't see it, taste it, smell it. It's not, you can't touch it. But the minute it starts operating in you, it's going to introduce some brain chemistry that will result in neurotransmitters that will result in either expansion or contraction. And when the contraction happens, that's what we call fear. And that contraction, right, it's just like this big giant ball of energy that just gloms together like an enormous hail ball in you that's made of love. And when you surround it with love, when you melt it with love, when you be loving to that part of you that you can't fucking stand, it dissolves into its original essence, which is love.
Okay.
So it's like ice and water are the same. They're in physically different forms, but they're still H2O. And you could turn that ice block, which is fear or shame or self-doubt or frustration or hatred or self-loathing, right? These kind of, you know, clumpy, heavy emotions that just, they feel like, we call it, like we've got a whole story around it. And if you just go into the energy of it, it's very tightly packed molecules of nothing's going to get in here. And if you melt the ice, it becomes water. And what it's in is water. Does that make sense? So that's why I think they're the same.
No, totally. That totally makes sense. And so I think, you know, when I hear you say that, I think that, you know, like it sort of feeds into what I think a lot of my thinking of this last year has been around how most of the things that we engage with in life are on a continuum. And it's this sort of constant dance of like where you're falling on the continuum, whether it's the giving and the receiving, you know, or like being in the more masculine or the more feminine, like all of these energies that we dance and navigate, right? And as we, you know, learn to like listen to our energy, you know, manage healthy boundaries, navigate our relationships with other people, and really listen to our energy, we can kind of go, oh, I'm stuck getting a little bit stuck down this end, like maybe I need to move more into this space, you know. And we allow that fluidity, I guess, essentially to be part of how we engage in the world, and that allows us to heal ourselves and then also show up for the people in our lives that we need to show up for in a particular way or not, you know. I mean, I see that as a parent, like my 3 kids couldn't be more fucking different. So, you know, learning how to, and I found that with my 2 sons, like they're both boys, everyone was like boy, and I was like, they couldn't be more different. You know, like I remember when my second son was about 2, we were playing Legos and he was like, where are all the people? And I was like, well, we're just building blocks and building. He's like, but they need to be built for people. Where are the people? And I was like, oh my God, like I hadn't even thought of that, because my firstborn son he'd been like building all the blocks and hadn't been like, where are the people who are living in these houses that we are building, you know? And so learning how to navigate that energy. Yeah.
And that's totally, you know, look at their perspective, right? Son number 1, he was the only people, right? It was him and you.
Yeah.
And so there weren't any other people because it was all about him. And then the second one, like he's got a brother. So of course he's like, his orientation is different. And this is the thing, is that we all have our own little where are the people bubbles that we live in. We all have our own bubbles that are completely different from everybody else. And then we're like, why can't we fucking get along? Because you're the only one in your bubble.
Right.
And the thing about fear and love is that when you're afraid of what? They're not going to like me, right? That's a love issue. They're not going to approve of me. That's a love issue. I'm doing it wrong. That's a love issue. They're going to be mad at me. That's a love issue, right? Everything that we're afraid of, truly underneath of that constriction, is a deep, deep, deep anxiety about, am I lovable?
Yeah.
If I do this. That's really what it's about. And when we remember that you are love, you are made of love, every cell of you is love, it no longer takes you out.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this. This is so juicy. So I would love to dig in a little bit to the money thing, because that is like one of the core ways that you support people in their transformation. And I'm curious about your own money journey and what led you to the point of going, this is the place where I really need to help people and help people get unstuck around.
Well, it's not that you asked. Okay, so my money story, like, it came from feeling really unloved. I'm the child of divorced parents. They were very bitter in their divorce, and I was in the middle. And so I grew up with the understanding that if I align with one, I will not receive the love of the other. And if I align with this one, I will not receive the love of the other. So I was constantly in this, I can't have, like, somebody's going to be mad at me. Somebody's going to not love me. And that is such a painful place to be in. And so many people who have experienced divorce are very familiar with this dynamic.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize when I was little that it was not my fault. I thought it was my fault. I thought it was my fault because I was about, I was probably about 7 or 8, maybe. And it was April Fool's Day, and I thought it would be really funny to put sugar in the salt shaker. And my dad was a chain smoker. He was like a 3-pack-a-day smoker, and he loved meat. And because he was a 3-pack-a-day smoker and he loved meat, he used to salt a lot because he couldn't taste very much. So I, little 8-year-old Deborah, thought it'd be super, super funny to put sugar in the salt shaker. So this is hilarious because we don't even have white sugar in the house anymore, probably because this was so traumatic, the thing I'm about to say. So I put sugar in the salt shaker. My dad came home. My mom served whatever the chop of the day was. And my dad, like doused it with sugar like it was a blizzard on his choplet of whatever it was. And then he takes a bite and he slams his fist on the table and he says, "God damn it to hell, who put sugar in the salt shaker?" And he's furious and he pushes his chair away, and the whole table is like jangling, and he goes out and he slams the door. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm in so much trouble. About a half an hour later, he came back in. He knocks on the door. My sister and I are cowering in my sister's room because we're in deep trouble. And he knocks on the door and he says, sit down. I have to tell you something. We're going to have a conversation. And you know that's not good.
Yeah.
When your dad says, sit down, we're going to have a conversation. And he says, I'm leaving. And I thought it was my fault. I thought it was my fault. Yeah. And I mean, now it's like not a biggie, but like I thought it was my fault. I thought I caused my parents' divorce. So, I'm like dog and pony show. Somebody says jump and I'm like, how high? For years. And I was on this money roller coaster for years because I had one parent who had a lot of money and one parent who didn't. And so I was constantly like, it's not safe to have money. I can make money, but I better get rid of it so this one likes me. But then I want to have some money, but I better get rid of it so this one likes me. And it was just like this constant emotional and financial roller coaster. So, I eventually thought I better go to medical school and become a real doctor. This is after having earned a PhD from Princeton. Like no flies on that. I worked for that. I earned that. But I'm like, oh no, I'm not a real doctor. Oh no, that doesn't even count. And I took my PhD off my resume because people were saying, well, you're intimidating. Don't let anybody know that you have a PhD.
Yeah.
Horrible, right? I mean, you were actually with me during part of that phase when somebody that, we both know said, Deborah, take it off your resume because you're intimidating people.
Yeah.
And so I did, right? Because I didn't have the internal, stability and knowing who I am that, if you're intimidated by me, okay, you're not my person. Like, that's okay. That's on you. It's not me. I'm not responsible for your intimidation. You are, But, it takes a while to get to that place. So I thought I needed to go to medical school to get a real degree, a real paycheck, real respect. So that's what I did. I went off to medical school. And in the middle of this, there were a whole bunch of things. There was a flood in our town. We lost the room that I'm standing in, flooded. Immediately we were $50,000 in debt. And then a couple weeks later, my dad dropped out of a heart attack. This is my dad, so it's a big loss. And then the very next day after my dad died of massive cardiac arrest, I was working in the anatomy lab because I was on my way to medical school, remember? And it was my job to take the heart out of the cadaver. And holding the heart in my hands, and the heart that I was holding in my hands, that man had also died of a massive coronary. And you can see it, the heart will show you. And I just realized I've been running my business completely backwards. I've just been overgiving, I've been undercharging, I've been not sleeping. Like this whole masculine model does not fucking work.
Yeah.
So, it was again through the heart, it was through love that I just had a massive download of there is another way that is this. It is this. There's a complete cycle of expand, contract is one cycle. Inhale, exhale is one cycle. Give, receive is one cycle. And I thought I was just supposed to expand and give away and not charge and be open. And I like, all that expand is like spiritual mindfuckery. Like you got to ground. You got to receive. And
well, it's like that myth that if you are spiritual, you've got to be poor. If you're creative, you've got to be poor. If you're artistic, you've got to be poor. That somehow, that if you are in that realm of creativity and joy and spirituality and connectedness to the earth, that somehow that means that you can't make money. Right.
Right.
Those are like in like polar, like, no, they cannot connect. Yeah, where does that fucking come from? What started that whole, to be creative and spiritual means you shouldn't make money? Because it just seems to be such a prevalent, way of engaging.
I believe that it came from what we call the age of enlightenment. And I made this, I can't say discovery because it's not like I discovered anything, but this awareness entered me when I was on the path to medical school because I started studying the history of medicine. And right around the time when people were inventing, the telescope or the stethoscope, right, which allows us to compartmentalize the body, or the time when we were splitting electrons, around the end of the 18th century, same time as Alice in Wonderland was written and people were experimenting with getting really big and getting really small. It was around the same time that all these big discoveries were happening with the periodic table of the elements. And when I studied chemistry, I realized that the scientific language and the spiritual language are describing exactly the same thing. I remember sitting in the organic chemistry lab and we were supposed to make a crystal and then it was going to decrystallize and then it was going to rematerialize as crystal. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what like this is what they're talking about.
Yeah.
You like and realizing that, oh, when you are at the nucleus, consolidated at the nucleus as every cell is, and then there's this electron cloud. The more consolidated you are at the nucleus, the bigger the cloud. And that the electron is wherever the viewer says it is. And I'm like, oh my God, all this makes perfect sense. And so I ended up not going to medical school. I realized like this is the structure of everything. So I can use these organic, natural laws to build my business.
Love it. Yay.
So that's where I think it came from, was this time when we were looking at Alice getting really big or Alice getting really small, or Gulliver, meeting really big people or getting really small people. We were playing with this perspective all of a sudden, realizing, oh, I'm not fixed.
Yeah.
And also Descartes, let's not leave that dude out.
Right.
I think, therefore I am. And prioritizing the thinking has led to so much stress and so much pain and so much sickness because it leaves the whole rest of the body out of the conversation.
Yeah.
And the work that I do brings the whole body so that you're operating from a place of wholeness instead of only about 5% of your capacity, which is what you are if you're living from the head.
Right. No, and I've discovered that, and I'm actually at the end, coming to the end of a 6-week program I've been doing, where one of the things that I've started to realize with people is if their koshas are not in alignment, if they are in a space where their energy is blocked and they are really they're deep, like they're just clunky and stuck and there's gunk in the way, then it doesn't matter how good your habit intentions are, they're not going to fucking stick. It doesn't matter how juicy your big life vision is, the business you want to create, the love you want to have, the family you want to create, the non-profit that you want to, that's going to change the world. If you are not in integrity, in alignment, with all of the parts of yourself deeply communicating, like it doesn't really matter what the fuck you do, like it's not gonna stick, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So all this work that you do, right? Yay! So all this work you do, my question that I ask all my guests is, what is one behavior that doesn't matter how much you keep coming back and working at it, that you struggle with and you fall off the wagon with?
Organization. I'm so disorganized. And I'm so disorganized partly because I'm very right-brained. I'm very connected to the all that is. My subconscious is super powerful, super prominent, leading the way. And that masculine part, it's like, you're supposed to do this right now. I mean, it's right in there with the behave. I'm like, no, I don't fucking want to behave. So there are piles everywhere. There are piles of books, piles of paper. And also, we talked about this earlier in this conversation, this part of us that's just human that feels like, oh, I'm just not doing enough. She's directly related to another part of me that has an insatiable appetite to learn. I love cooking, so I have so many cookbooks and they're all open with recipes that I'm drooling over, and I'm reading like 6 books at the same time, and like I try on lots of clothes and then I just put them on the bed because I keep going, and if you're a creator, you just keep rising and like stuff falls and then you're like, okay, well, I have to clean that shit up. Right? So I'm really disorganized, and at the same time I'm really visual. And I'm really laser. So I know where everything is. If you move it, I can't find it because it wasn't visually where I left it.
Right.
I organize things by, like, my whole closet is organized by color.
Okay. Right? I love it.
So like I'm kind of disorganized, and I constantly work at it. I constantly work because I know that I would be even more powerful if I were more organized. And it does not come naturally to me to be organized. I'm not one of those like put everything away the minute you take it off and line up all your pencils and line up all the edges. Like, that is not me.
I know, it's so funny, like, and back to my kids again, like that, my 17-year-old like will come into the hallway and be like, why are there shoes all over the hallway? It's so untidy in here. And I'm like, because I need to have like the hiking shoes for when I walk the dog, because she hugs and I slip. And then I need to have the ones that are like slippers for when I'm just going to get the newspaper and I'm not going that far. And he's like, why didn't you put them in your bedroom? And I'm like, because I need them right there by the door. And he's like, God, mother, you're so disorganized. So I totally get it.
Like, it makes perfect sense sense to you
Yeah, it's totally logical. It's totally
because you're living in your own where are the people bubble.
yeah,
And he's like, how come there are fucking slippers in the hallway
yeah,
bubble?
yeah.
And both of these bubbles need to coexist.
Exactly. Totally, totally. Oh my God, I love this. So what is your favorite quotation, the one that you return to again and again? This is the second question I love to ask people.
It's from Winnie the Pooh. And it's wherever you go, there you are.
Ah,
And I
yeah.
love it because, I struggled for years with this money thing. And I thought, oh, I need therapy. And then my therapist fired me because he said I was too negative. And then, I tried all these other things. I tried yoga and I tried meditation and I tried, writing notes to the universe and like all kinds of things. And until I actually cleared this at the subconscious level, obviously I kept taking myself with me. So if I kept biting my head against a wall, it was because I was the common denominator. So I just love that wherever you go, there you are. And I love Winnie the Pooh. I love that visual of Winnie the Pooh where he's half in, half out, trying to get the honey pot.
Yep.
This is kind of where we are. This is kind of where we are with our mindsets, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a party that really wants it, and there's a party that won't let you have it.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to sort it out.
Yeah, no, and there are so many good characters in that. When I was a kid, my mom used to call me Tigger because I'm like so full of energy, right?
Somebody called me Tigger last week.
And then if I came into the room like this, she'd be like, "Are you having an Eeyore moment, darling? Do you need to have a chat with me? Are you all right?" When I'd be like, "Oh, everything. I hate life. I hate school. I can't do it." She's like, "Oh, having a little Eeyore moment right now. That's okay." Yeah. Oh, fabulous. Yes, yes. Okay, so my final question is, if you had a theme song that played when you walked into the room, we'd all be like, "Where's Deborah?" What would it be?
Love, love, love. Love, love, love. That's it. Love, love, love. Yeah.
I love it.
All you need is love. Mm-hmm.
Oh, fabulous.
Melts everything.
Everything. Oh, yes, the Beatles. God, they were a pair of amazing songwriters, those two. Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. This has been so much fun. Have you got anything else that you would love to share with our listeners today of any kind of last, like, if you could do this one thing, to change your life, what would it be?
If you could do one thing that would change your life, love yourself more. Love everything about yourself. Love your shame, love your doubt, love your self-loathing, love your fear, love your badassery, love your brilliance, love your quirkiness, love your body. Love.
Oh, so good. So good. Yes, self-lovership. Like, I've been on a journey this last year, self-lovership, and it's been so good in all these different ways. Yeah, I love it. Yay, that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Deborah. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and
Me too. So fun.
And I hope I'll have you back in the future.
Yeah, thanks so much. Much love to you.